The U3A, which is the University of the Third Age, lifelong learning, it's a motto, has a number of groups of varying nature, one of which is the Art Appreciation Group, and this meets monthly, and of the group you take it in turns to select a painter and to do a presentation, a sort of PowerPoint presentation in words and pictures. You've done a number, I know, but you did one that was particularly mind-blowing and jaw-dropping because you took it a stage further than the words and the pictures by actually recreating the painter himself. Tell us a bit about the painter you chose, Alan, and why you chose him.
I choose painters or subjects because particularly interesting. I chose Grayson Perry because although he's very eminent, he's also quirky, and I like painters who are quirky and subject matter that's quirky. When I say he's quirky, he was awarded the Turner Prize and he was delighted to have it, and he said he was proud to be the first transvestite potter ever to have won the Turner Prize. In fact, he was the first working potter ever to receive the Turner Prize. And that, I think, was about 2013. He is, if you like, a distinguished man, though you wouldn't know it by looking at him. He gave the Wreath Lectures a couple of years ago. He's a university vice-chancellor, or chancellor, and he is a BAFTA-winning broadcaster.
He is one of the most instantly recognisable artists that we have. I suppose there's David Hockney, perhaps Tracy Emin. I don't know if anybody would pick Damien Hirst at first sight, but everyone, I should imagine, would pick Grayson, wouldn't they? Because of his the way in which he dresses.
It's the way in which he dresses. Well, invariably on his public appearances, he dresses like a woman. He did this when he received his MBE from the Queen.
That's right, yes.
Yes, he was very smartly dressed. He dressed in what he called his Mother of the Bride outfit. And a palace spokesman, when invited to comment, said, "We thought Mr. Perry was perfectly properly dressed."
He first made his name as a potter, didn't he?
Yes. He chose pottery because pots are unfashionable. And in fact, pots were thought of as naff. A potter wouldn't usually be described as an artist. A potter is a craftsman rather than an artist. Mm. And Grayson Perry's pots are usually very recognisable. They're in classical shapes. If you just see an outline of one of his pots, you might think it was a Greek vase. And that's quite deliberate. So he, as in other of his works, he chooses conventional or classical form, and the content he puts into it is subversive, and the designs or pictures on his pots are subversive.
How did he get into tapestry from pottery? Is that the thing only he could answer?
Maybe, but tapestries, perfectly conventional forms of art, and traditionally have hung in stately homes and have portrayed battles of classical times, moments from our history. And so he chose tapestries and subverted their content. Yes. He's particularly interested in taste, very interested in class and taste and how the two relate to one another. And this is shown in his tapestries, particularly in his series of tapestries,
which are more almost Hogarth-like, aren't they, in their depiction of human life in its various forms.
They were quite deliberately based on Hogarth, and his hero is called Tom, just as in Hogarth's paintings, and they do form a sequence like Hogarth's Rake's Progress. But in his pronouncement, he's always been quite effusive on taste and class, and part of the joy in seeing his big tapestries, because they are very big, is to pick out the elements of class in his portrayals of working class Tyneside, middle class Tunbridge Wells, working class Sunderland, middle class Tunbridge Wells, and then the Cotswolds, which are upper class. And you look at his tapestries and pick out. It's embarrassing sometimes because it reflects perhaps your own judgment about what form the elements of class.
Yeah, I was very struck by that, I must say. And of course, he turns his his pots and his pictures into words as well, doesn't he? Because he gave the wreath lectures. Were they the ones about taste and class?
Yes,
they
yes,
were, weren't they? Yes.
They were.
I know. I listened to them, and they were very. He made some very striking points because he wasn't afraid of pulling. He didn't pull his punches, shall we say that? Did he? When he talked about class.
He takes a strong view of class. He's pretty left-wing himself. In fact, he has sold one or two of his paintings in aid of the Labour Party, and he takes a left-wing view, but he's not sentimental about it.
His pictures are over the net. I'm wondering, is there going to be a YouTube of your performance available to people?
If there is, I haven't seen it.
Yeah. And you weren't aware of anyone doing it?
No. When I first stood up, I got a cheer before I said a word.
Yeah.
I suppose they thought it was a bold thing to do, but I felt perfectly at home doing it like that.
Well, thank you very much for talking about your antics and your achievements and Grayson Perry. What's going to be your next talk at the Art Appreciation? I should imagine people are already looking forward to it. It may be something that you could recreate the artist himself in, but that might be a bit difficult.
I haven't decided. As I say, ideally an artist or a subject which is quirky and which is amusing.
Anyway, thank you very much, Alan. That's been very, very entertaining. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Trevor.